Well guys, winter's finally here. We got snow upon snow. Got about 8 inches of fresh snow, and now it's freezing rain. It's starting to melt now, so it's just getting real heavy and big mess. So I'm going to be digging out here, and my vacant rental that I'm selling, I'm going to have to do that too. And I just gave my in-laws a snowblower, and they can't get it started. So I'll probably wind up doing that too, at least going and showing them how to start it. So I'm not going to be doing any trading, plus we got a hockey game an hour out of town tonight. But I'm going to take today and answer some of your questions, because they've really been piling up over the weekend. Dan Zhang, do you think beginner futures traders should avoid trading the NQ futures because it's really volatile and moves so fast? Yes, Dad. I think that the NASDAQ is probably for when you're a little bit later along. It's not to say it can't be traded. It's definitely tradable. I would much rather see somebody start on an index like the YM or the Dow or the S&P. It's a little bit more controlled. Cardioman 550, whereabouts in Canada are you? I'm in central Alberta, and these style houses look like what I see here a lot. I am in eastern Ontario, so I'm, closest city to me is Ottawa. I think a lot of the architecture is probably quite a bit the same though. Heartland, did they move out because of the head spinners? Well, funny enough though, my wife seems to think the house is haunted. Not like unfriendly, but I don't hear any of that. I mean, I have an undertaker. I owned a funeral home for 11 years. People told me they could hear stuff in the funeral home. I never heard anything. White Stork, first comment on your channel. Thanks for sharing your story. Long and the short of it, thinks that, it seems like a lot of people on, traders and that just had it easy. Well, I could have had it a lot harder, quite honestly, but, I've been through all sorts of times of life. I lost my dad when I was 20. A lot of people lost their father younger, but I lost him when I was 20. I've had good times and bad times. I've had times when I've had lots of money. I've had times that I've been broke. That's just life. But fortunately, things are good now and only on the upswing, and that's what we want. Myron says I'll be able to pay for my shower curtains. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, Myron. I'm going to be buying some on sale, though. In fact, I don't even think I really have to put them in. A real estate agent will probably make sure I do, though. Mojo Manufacturing says, been going back and forth between paper and real trading, doing 1 to 3 contracts on the micro ES. You should just do one, Mojo. Just stay with one till you get it down pat, I would say. But learning more and more as I pay some tuition, yeah, for sure. You just sit, analyze, and be patient. It says, lately he's found multitasking between work and trading doesn't make for good outcome. Yeah, that can be difficult sometimes. I mean, I traded while at the funeral home when I had it in the mornings, anytime I didn't have a service on or something. But, the phone was always ringing, and it is a distraction. But the thing is, you don't want to go straight to trading until you've been, successful for like several years. You don't want to go straight into doing this full time until you know that you can do it without to actually pay your bills, not just for extra money. So hang on to that day job till you got things well under control. But yes, it is a bit of a distraction sometimes. However, sometimes it can be a healthy distraction, like I mentioned too, right? If it's a slow market and you got some other work tasks you can do to keep you from taking a bad trade, it's not so bad either. I thought that I had it all figured out because years ago I'd found what I believe are the perfect Christmas lights, which is these laser gun things that just like spray a whole bunch of little points of light on your house, plug it in, bam, Christmas lights, done. My wife does not agree with me, and of course I lose. So every year we kind of add something new. This year we got this thing, a reindeer and a sleigh, so that's going to get put out there too. Hey, Mike writes, thanks for your content. Been trading for a couple of years. 2 biggest problems are over-trading and revenge trading. Amen, Mike. Over thousands of hours of viewing price action, he has put his time in, this fellow. I have been able to identify high-risk reward entry points, but having patience to wait for them is my issue. Yeah, that's hard. Biggest way that I kind of learned patience is I just got sick of losing money. Of course, I didn't trade in micros. When I started trading futures, they didn't have micros, so it was full-size ES, or full-size YM, or nothing. Every time you got bit fairly hard, so it maybe stuck a little bit sooner that way. Don't do that, though. Stick with the micros until you get this. Just switched over to futures from day trading stocks. I think that's a fantastic move, Mike. Stocks, I just kept jumping around too much, looking for the next best thing, always missing the right setups. Yeah, there's way too many choices. I couldn't sit down and figure out a watch list every morning. Forget it. Now I'm in futures focused on 1 to 3 instruments. One question. I know not to trade the news, but it helps for context. Yes, it does. In futures, do you have a news source you recommend to stay on top of what's going on in the overall market? Thanks. Actually, yes, but on this same vein, I got something really cool that I'm going to be talking to you guys about in the new year. A company reached out to me. I've had a number of companies reach out to me, different types of things, prop firms and all that, and I kind of just it's off. But this one fellow has got a really, really cool service. But part of what they do is newswire. And he answered a question I always had. The free newswires, how delayed are they from the paid newswires? And he said about 20 seconds. That's still pretty quick. If you're not trading the actual announcement, there are free newswires on Twitter. So as far as free ones that are excellent, Financial Juice is at Financial Juice. Breaking Market News, at Breaking MKTS. I followed Breaking Markets until I learned about Financial Juice. They're both very good. I find Financial Juice is a little quicker more often than not. So I would get yourself a Twitter feed on Financial Juice or Breaking Markets. Have that going. That's all you need. Just set it so you get notified for every one from them. And then when you see a move in the market, you'll 10 or 20 seconds later, ding, you'll get the context of why that is. And if you don't get a ding, then there's something else going on, right? Anyway, Mike, it sounds like you put in your time. You just kind of get to the point of just putting it all together, and that patience and discipline is the hardest part. Yeah, absolutely. It's still hard for now, Cool Man asks, came back to see if you'd responded to my comment. We couldn't find it. Seems YouTube's been doing that to my comments lately. Yeah, sometimes, guys, YouTube just deletes comments for no reason, and I don't know why. I literally have not ever deleted a comment, except if it's obviously spam. Sometimes I get a notification of a comment and I click on it and it's just not there. I just assumed people were deleting it, but sometimes for some reason, I think if you put links in there, maybe it doesn't take it, but Coolman's having a bit of a rough go. He's asking, do I trade specific setups? Yes or no? Yes and no. I do have specific setups, yes. I mentioned a couple of them. The typical trading education is you're sort of shown to a picture of exactly what the chart's going to look like. And if it looks exactly like this, then you go short. I don't really trade that way. I tried learning that way, and it just kind of got me nowhere. So I'm kind of trying to show you the way that I look at things. So I do have kind of a library in my head of what kind of a setup looks like, but not like an exact picture. Because discretionary trading doesn't really work the way that we've all been conditioned to think that it does. So I generally just watch for price movement, which I'll talk about. I'll mention that I wait for price to stop going up. How do I tell if it stops going up? Well, but essentially I'll wait for it to make its little high, come back down, and then not be able to better that high the next wave type of thing that it's in. If it can't better that, that's when I'll short it. Vice versa, waiting for something to stop going down. I'll try and spend a little bit more time talking about specific setups also. He's fortunately just trading paper money, which is great. 6 months into it, equity curve has been a steady downtrend, which really erodes my motivation to press on. However, smart enough to make all this paper trading capital. So that's good. Good job, Coolman. Don't start trading with real money until at least you have some expectation you can at least break even. So you've been trading for 6 months and consistently losing money. Unfortunately, that's kind of normal. You got to be prepared to do that for a year before you really can expect to get anywhere. It's, learning to trade is not like learning to ride a bike. It's like learning an actual skilled trade or a profession. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to get consistent at it or really successful in any way at it. I kind of generally tell people, if you can break even by the end of a year, then you're doing fantastic. Most people's equity curve after 6 months is gone. It's a cliff. And it's gone in a week or a month or maybe 2 months, definitely by 6 months. That's the most. That's like the 75% of traders that start out, So the fact that you're still here and you're using paper money, like I would expect in your first 6 months trading, you will consistently lose money bit by bit by bit until you start to get a really good handle on this. So you're really not doing too bad. Come back a year from now, year and a half from now, and if you're break even by then you're probably going to make it. That's kind of the way it works. But realistically, you can seriously work at this for 2 to 3 years before you can really expect to have consistent success. That's just normal. So if it's something you want to stick with, you're doing absolutely fine after 6 months. You could be doing so much worse. Most people would already be broke with real money. You've got all your real money still on the side, and you've lost a bit of paper money. That's fine. Keep putting in the work, keep doing the research and the practice, and eventually it'll come around. And you know what? If it doesn't, it doesn't. But going about it the way you're going about it gives you a really high chance of success compared to the average person. Silverholic asks if I can elaborate how I use the VIX in my trading decisions. I'll go into that in another video, Silverholic, but I don't make a decision based upon what the VIX is doing, but it's just one of those little factors that I'm looking at as I'm going. Say if I'm long and I'm wondering whether to stay in a trade or look at just hopping out. Well, if the VIX is continually falling and falling and falling, and it keeps falling, that's going to make me consider staying in. It'll be one of those little factors that's going to make me consider staying in the trade, as opposed to if the VIX is rising and rising and rising and price is rising and rising and rising. One of them's probably going to give pretty soon, so that's something that would make me think about hopping out. Agreeminator, do you think you should use SPY analysis on the ES? The SPY is the index, and the ES is the futures contract. They're going to move very similar to each other, but they are different. Yeah, I would be doing ES research on ES data, SPY research on SPY data. Michael James says, love the rink, Matt. Thanks, Michael. Don't most platforms plot previous session levels automatically? You can have them do that. I don't know if TradingView does that, but there must be a script to do that. I used to have an indicator in MetaTrader that plotted that. I stopped using it long ago, though, because it really didn't help me any. It was a shortcut, but it wasn't a good shortcut. I've just stuck with sitting down with a cheat sheet, going back and looking over the levels, checking each one, and I just find for all the time that takes, it makes me a lot more familiar with it than just looking at a line on a chart. A line on a chart is a line on a chart. Going back over and looking through it a few times, it just gives me a better picture, gives me a better awareness in my head. Another good question from Silverholic. Do you think the London session is better to trade for a beginner? The thing with it, the London session is kind of similar to the pre-market New York session, like say the hour before when I like to sit down. The London can whip more for sure, but a lot of the times it's just the same thing, but tighter ranges, slower movement. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea, but would I get up at 3 in the morning to do it, to learn rather than learning on the New York hours? No, I would rather have you learn on the New York hours with a super small position, paper first and then like 1 micro. Ryan says, what are the top factors when determining if you're going with a continuation play or a reversal? That's a good question. It's kind of a mixture of everything. First of all, the daily chart. What's the daily chart look like? If I just sit down and look at the daily chart, do I figure it should be going up today or down today? I start with that. I look at the price action overnight, like has it been going straight up so far, like since through London or not? Has it been coming down from London? I look at my technicals and see where they're sitting. And then I look to see if there's any key levels anywhere near. Is the next key level closer on the upside than it is on the downside? So there isn't really any one more than the other, quite honestly. It's kind of a mixture of everything. Donkey Face, another fellow who comments pretty much all the time. Thank you very much for that. I always appreciate reading those. All you guys, thank you for your comments and for your questions and your engagement. This is what makes it fun for me, so I really appreciate that, guys. Always keep them coming. If I take a couple days to get back, I'm sorry. I will get back to you. I'm just really enjoying this. I hope you're getting something out of these videos, and I hope I was able to answer a few questions. I imagine this video is getting a bit long in the tooth, and I got some stuff to do, so I'm going to hit the road, grab my cheat sheet newsletter, daytradernextdoor.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you soon.